Hey everybody. At this point in Classic, we know that world buffs are important. It's how all the top guilds are able to speed clear everything in like 20 minutes. It's how people are able to get 99 parses all across BWL. It's how you're able to do the most damage and move the quickest. Now things could be changing. Recently, Blizzard put out a blue post talking about enabling advanced logging. You may have heard of this before, you may have not. Now what that does is they're just allowing data to be able to track fully on world buffs. It's a simple change on their part, but what it does is it's going to enable classic WoW logs to then create a whole new category about world buffs. Right now there's categories on trash skips and non-trash skip runs. This would basically be like that, but in my opinion be a bigger deal, and that we'll be able to see a world buff run and a non-world buff run. Now in this video I want to make the case on why not only should they do that, but why a non-world buff run should become the default by which we judge parses and the standard that your guild should adopt. The first point is that in a world with no world buffs, raid comps get much more diverse. The current meta with speedruns and with high parsing guilds is to get the kill time as low as possible. When you do that, your DPS will have a much higher average with a shorter cooltime. You have better control over cooldowns, and you can target procs and consumables to specific burst damage points. The best class for this, of course, is Warrior. And so the result is right now in the top guilds, there's a massive Fury stack where there's 10, 15, even 20 Fury Warriors all in a big death ball, just absolutely obliterating bosses down and getting to the execute phase where they then key for procs and pop cooldowns, and the result is massive damage. Now these top guilds, they're not going to change, and they shouldn't have to. They've gone through all the work to build their raid around a Fury stack. They've geared them out, they've developed their strats, and that's going to stay the same. But for those of us that are a bit more casual, having a no world buff category and making that the standard of your guild's raid will now allow for a more diverse raid comp and still be able to have higher performance, because the offset, the level that Free Warriors are performing at won't be astronomically high. Okay, my next point. In a non-world buff category, your gear means more. With world buffs, it's like you are creating an entirely separate gear set and you're layering it on top of your existing gear set. In raids, people with mediocre gear, if they get world buffs, they're still going to be able to do top level DPS. With no world buffs, the way you gear and the chance you get and everything, it just means more and it has more of an impact. As a result, your guild will need to be smart with the loot that it gets. If gear has more of an impact, then you need to put it in places that it will be of the greatest benefit to the raid. Having world buffs can cover a lot of those holes that were there before. The next point I'm super excited about, and that is no more min-maxed world buff rotation and the culture and the new game meta that arose behind that. So let me take you step by step through what my current world buff rotation is. Now this has been different based on what server I'm on, but right now the first step is I go on my Hunter alt, I clear a tribute, I go through on my main, I use swiftness pots, speed trinkets, I go through, I get the 2 tribute buffs that are relevant to me as fast as possible, then I hearth, and then I help my guildies get their buffs. Next, if it's the week of Dark Moon Fair, I go try to find a summon, I go get the Dark Moon Fair buff, then immediately hearth out. I wait some time, then I port or get a summon to Darnassus or Felwood, I find a Songflower, I sometimes log out, watch it on my Hunter alt. When it's up, switch over, I get the Songflower, then I hearth. Next, right before the raid, we're able to coordinate and work with other guilds on our server and get the ZG and the Anexi head buffs right before raid. And then sometimes on the way to raid, I'll coordinate with a priest and a couple others and Mind Control Spellbinder and Upper Blackrock Spire, get the fire resistance buff, and then go into raid. Now once you have all these buffs, the current maiden culture has you do some weird things. Like, you'll be logging out from that point on until you go into raid. Or for me, in my current rotation, it would be before I get my last couple buffs. I'd log out and there'd be a long gap that would sometimes be a couple days even, depending on the availability of certain buffs. And then, when we're doing invites, or when we get to raid and not everybody's there, we're not ready yet, then sometimes you just log out then, because it's all about saving those buffs, so you have them as long as possible. And then on top of that, during raid, you have to manage your buff cap if you want to keep all of them, and that can create some very frustrating scenarios. Some situations where you are clicking off heals over time that are placed on you, in addition to buffs that don't benefit you as much as your world buffs or the consumes that you brought to raid. And then of course there's the dark side, the toxic side of world buff culture, and that is creating characters, creating level 12 shamans, creating priests to go out and target those that have world buffs and dispel them. Why not just avoid that altogether by making your guild a non-world buff parse guild? Now the last point I'm going to bring up is that obviously without world buffs the game gets harder. It goes to how it was intended to. Boss mechanics mean something. You're going to have to deal with them. You'll be able to play the game and get high parses within the scope of the mechanics the developers created. So hopefully I've been able to give you an idea of why you should try out a non-world buff raid when that new category hits Classic WoW logs. I'm super excited for it. I'm looking forward to min-maxing within this world with no world buff, so using the tools given to me, consumes, the gear, all of that. I'm super excited, and I hope you guys try it out and have fun as well.